listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Getting on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
And welcome to another edition of West Coast Bias, presented by Baseball Isn't Boring, and also presented by our partners at Wasabi Cloud Storage. For all your cloud storage needs, go to www.wasabi.com, just like the hot sauce. The Dodgers won the World Series last night, and stoked, obviously. I'm very stoked as a Dodgers apologist. And I was thinking to myself, I got to do a show, want to do a show, need to do a show. And I was thinking to myself, the short list of people I wanted to have on. And I don't think it was any more fitting than I have my good friend on. Some refer to him as the Prince of Darkness. I refer to him as Juanito. He is one of the hosts of the Bleed Los podcast and ShangriLA, two separate entities, by the way. My good friend, Juanito Ramirez. Juan, how are you, my guy?
Fantastic. ¿Cómo estás, amigo?
I could tell that you partied way harder than I did last night, and I'm here for it.
And not only did I party way too hard, I collected receipts last night, bro.
Oh.
I collected receipts because I'll tell you this. I drop off my niece in the morning at daycare, and these people have said nothing to me all season, right? The Dodgers lose game 4, and all of a sudden I get, hey, what happened to the Dodgers? And I was like, oh, so now you guys decide to say that. So then when I dropped off my niece this morning, you best believe I did the Mr. McMahon walk as I was dropping her in there.
You went full gimmick?
Oh, and then they were all just sitting there going, no, I wanted the Dodgers to win. I was like, get the hell out of here. Yeah.
I literally thought of you when Walker came out to pitch that ninth, because based on how it was going to end with him pitching to Doogie Verdugo. And in my mind, I was like, oh, if there's someone that's going to relish this moment, it's going to be Juan Ramirez.
And you know what, dude? I didn't catch it until later on.
Oh.
I really did, because I really didn't make a big deal about Verdugo's comments, right? Because to me, it really came off as just like, bro, you don't have to shoot your mouth off. It's right. Bad. I get it. You're hurt, dude. You got traded for Mookie Betts, and then they go and they win a World Series, right? In his first season. So I really dismissed it. It wasn't until after the game when I realized, when I realized it? When Walker Buehler made the comment that everybody talks shit about 2020. What are they going to do now? Right. And that's when I was just like, and it's true, because I found myself getting caught up in this whole 2020 thing. And I don't know how you feel, but getting into this argument about 2020 and defending the Dodgers feels like I'm giving this argument oxygen. And I just don't think it's a valid argument, because every other team in Major League Baseball had the same opportunity to win a World Series. And for them to sit there and say, oh, well, anybody could win it in a 60-game season. Well, then why didn't you guys? Why didn't you guys win it?
No, and I think, so I had a conversation with Chad Jennings from The Athletic right before game 1. And I had this theory, right? And I still maintain that theory, I guess, to be correct. It was the vindication series. And what I mean by that is the Dodgers had a lot of pressure on them and a lot of kind of, what's the word? Kind of things like that, right? Like people still referring to it as an asterisk championship. Obviously, all the pressure in the world is on them because they went out and got Ohtani. They went out, they went hard with money. Yamamoto, they spent money. They made some aggressive trades at the deadline. Jack Flaherty was right at the deadline, right? And then you have kind of this lingering cloud of all that stuff from 2020 that people just keep saying, oh, well, it's a Mickey Mouse championship, right? And then on the Yankee side, there's been so much pressure on Aaron Boone for the last few years. Aaron Judge hasn't been to to a World Series, has not won a pennant. All these things that, Juan Soto potentially, coming back, may not come back, maybe a Met, who knows? There's so many different kind of caveats. Garrett Cole, obviously showed that he is that guy, right? He is that dude.
Yeah.
He got rocked None of those runs were earned, by the way, which is incredible.
Dude, I wouldn't even say that he got rocked. I mean,
you can make that argument, yeah.
He didn't get rocked, dude. It was, I've never seen anything like that, Alonso. I had
No, yeah.
never, I did not have that on my Loteria card. I did not see the Yankees having, I mean, A-Rod said it was a meltdown. Do you think that fifth inning was a meltdown?
I think it was just a series of comedic failures. I think it was just, just fundamental baseball went out the door, and that's when you have to play the most fundamental baseball you can, right? Is in the World Series, because those little things add up. I mean, when you look back at the series, right? Like I was saying, I refer to it as the vindication series. Dodgers are vindicated. Yankees now have a bunch of questions. One of those things is it's fundamental baseball where you essentially execute and/or capitalize on your opponent's mistakes. That's kind of what the Dodgers just did all series long.
Yes.
It's not that they were, granted Freddie Freeman was just on a tear, and we'll talk about him in a second, but it wasn't that all these bats were awake. It wasn't that they were manufacturing runs. It wasn't any of that. They were just honestly capitalizing on their mistakes, and it started with Garrett Cole not covering first base, and even Rizzo kind of looked at him like, what's going on? And that's kind of where the beginning of the end, for lack of a better term, was. And so for me, it's the Dodgers are still vindicated. I don't care what anybody says, because if that's what you had to use as your bulletin board material, hey, I respect that, because at the end of the day, they had already won a championship in 20, which I think, this is just my opinion, I think that championship was exponentially harder to win than one of these was, because you're away from your people, you're playing in basically two places. You can't, there is no traveling, there's none of that, so you're in the zone all the time. And so for me, I think that series was way harder than this one. This is just emotionally an incredibly difficult series, just emotionally, physically. I mean, we even talked about Freddie Freeman a second ago. My guy had 4 to 5 hours of treatment every day. That sounds so painful. So that's how I look at it. Am I looking at it the wrong way, or how do you think I'm looking at it through that preview?
No, I agree with you. It's funny to me because I really appreciate you bringing up those points, because there is this belief, because the series went 5, that somehow the Dodgers dominated the Yankees, and I just don't see that. It's exactly what you're talking about. For me, it was Federico. Federico carried them offensively, because if you look at it, and I know the Shohei injury, I think, complicates things. But the guy ended up with 1 hit through the series, and obviously he was hurt. But you got nothing from Max Muncy offensively. Mookie and Teoscar, but they didn't have like huge series.
Right.
It was really Federico and I have to give credit to some of the starting pitching, even though Jack Flaherty did not look good last night. I was going to say it was Federico in the bullpen, but you have Walker Buehler, you have what Yamamoto did, and you have what Flaherty did in the first game. And honestly, that was something I just did not see coming. It is a weird World Series, because I know you weren't alive for maybe were you alive for 88, or you just have no memories of 88?
I have no memories because I was 2 years old.
Okay. So for me, there are some similarities to 88 with this team. And this is where I get a lot of flack, because it's like, Juan, how can you compare these two teams? This team, the 2024 team, is stacked compared to that 88 team. Well, the similarities that you have is this, that, of course, game 1, the Gibson home run and the Freeman home run. For me, the Gibson home run is still a greater home run, because they were huge underdogs in that series, and he hit it off of the best reliever, not in the series, the best reliever in all of Major League Baseball at that time. Okay. So I can see the drama is similar between the Gibson and the Freeman home run. But for the most part, that 88 World Series was dominated by Dodgers pitching, and it was Hershiser. Now, I know there's comparisons between Buehler and Hershiser, because what Buehler ended up doing in 2024 was something that Hershiser did in 88. But look, what Buehler did is fantastic, but go look at what Hershiser did in 88. And that's just not, it's Hershiser's on another level. But I see the similarities there, where after that game 1, I think Everything else was anticlimactic. But Alonso, these games were all close except for
Yeah.
game 4. These games were all close, and it was something I want to give Dave Denholm, who he is the play-by-play guy for LAFC. I want to give him credit because Dave is a huge Guardians fan. And so he saw the ALCS between the Guardians and the Yankees. And right before the World Series started, Dave Denholm said, the Dodgers are a great team. The Yankees are a pretty good team. I would be surprised if this doesn't end up in a sweep. And I was just like, Dave, that's bold there. And what he said came through in this whole entire series, Alonso. He said the Yankees are a bad base running team. Fundamentally wise, they are not good, and it's going to come back to bite them. And that's exactly what happened in this series. That was the difference. So it is crazy that the Dodgers beat the Yankees in 5 games. It doesn't feel like they dominated them. It feels exactly what you just said. They cashed in on the Yankees' mistakes and that bullpen, and the Yamamoto and Flaherty and Buehler did something that I did not think they were going to be able to do, which was shut down that, for the most part, the top half of that Yankees lineup.
And listen, that Yankees lineup is dangerous. Like, I mean, Judge showed it to you last night that lineup when Volpe showed it to you, right? That once they get going, they can get going. I mean, shit, even Jazz Chisholm showed you, that there's potency up and down that lineup, and this Dodgers pitching was able to keep it in check. Listen, I'll be honest, I didn't know what to expect out of Flaherty going into a clinching game, because that's doesn't matter, kind of on the experience. You're asking a young guy to do something tough like that, right? And that's a lot of pressure. Adrenaline's going. You're either going to go out and execute, or you're just not. And ultimately, that's what happened. But what the resilience of this Dodgers team that you see is the rest of the bullpen. They all had his back. They talked about it after the game, that this, it's the next man up mentality. And so that's where I think this Dodgers team is a little different than we've seen in years past, where the tight knitness, like, there's clubhouses that are tight, right? And I feel like this one's a little tighter than we've seen over the past few years. And man, I don't know what sort of performance enhancing drugs Dave Roberts has taken to function the way that he does, because holy shit, dude, like just the way that they hit. If you really sit back and think about it, retrospectively, we look at the entire season. They hit every speed bump that you can imagine, every single one. Obviously, one of the last ones was your star, Shohei Ohtani, getting injured. And they were fortunate that he didn't really get hurt during the season. Everyone's banged up at this point, though, right? Doesn't matter how many games you did or didn't play, everybody's banged up. And the fact that they were able to kind of pull off what they did with all of the injuries, I mean, we have to remember Tyler Glasnow, Clayton Kershaw, Gavin Stone, Emmett Sheehan, Tony Gonsolin, Dustin May, thank you, all hurt. Brusdar Graterol had been hurt for a long time, and he was just activated for this World Series. Yoshinobu Yamamoto was inactive for almost 2 months. Like, there's just this laundry list of things, and in a million years, never would you have, this is what I was thinking last night when Walker comes out to throw it. I was like, yep, that's exactly how everyone wrote this up. Walker Buehler coming out to save the game, to win the World Series and the clincher for the Dodgers. And that's just also baseball. Like, you and I have talked about it at length, that baseball is a cruel sport sometimes. And it kind of, showed its ugly head.
Can we talk about that cruelty? Because I do want to bring up the baseball gods. Do you believe in sports gods?
So this is I had a text conversation with a buddy of mine yesterday, and I don't necessarily believe in them, but I do believe that there's a certain level of karma, I guess, for lack of a better term. I don't, listen, those two jabronis that try to rip the ball out of Mookie's glove, I just think they were just two drunk jabronis. That's just what I think it was. I don't think anything more than that. It's just two drunk guys, at whatever. But to a certain degree, it's kind of certain levels of karma. I mean, listen, one thing that we kind of have to point out is not everything was going the Dodgers' way either, right? Like, there was pitches that weren't going their way. there was hits that weren't going their way. I mean, there's a just like with the Yankees, it was just kind of even keeled, right? I mean, if you really think about it, based on how last night went, most teams either would have done one of two things. Exactly what the Dodgers tried to do, which is try to kind of, dig up the muster and go, or you tap out. You say, hey, I still have another
Yeah.
game. We have a game in hand. Let's save all the arms. We'll just chalk this up to, mistakes, and then we'll go into the head. But they did not. They said, nah, we are not leaving the tri-state area without that trophy. But do you believe in baseball gods? Because like I said, I'm not overly superstitious about that sort of stuff. I'm the weird superstitious guy that has the same breakfast on his go day and all that stuff.
No, I do believe in the baseball gods, and that was part of. Look, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, Alonso. Um, I was a doubter from the very beginning of this postseason. I said to myself, "There's
That's
no
par for
way."
the course with you, though.
I was just like, look, yes, I know I have baseball drama, and it's because of the baseball gods. But I just thought there's no way with three starters that they're going to be able to get through this gauntlet, right? And I mean, for me, everything changed in Game 3 of the NLDS against the Showpots. As people who listen to my shows know, I am the founding member of the Stalloner's Club, and for me, I'm a big Sylvester Stallone fan. And for me, the Dodgers can be told the story of the Dodgers of 2024 can be told through all the Rocky movies. And for me, that moment in Game 3 of the NLDS was Rocky 3. And that was when they were down 6-1 and they cut that lead to 6-5. It was the moment where Rocky Balboa says to Clubber Lang, "You ain't so bad. You ain't so bad." And from that moment on, even though the Dodgers didn't win that game, I think they shook the Showpods, because then it was what, like 24 scoreless innings? And this is the resiliency that you were talking about that I don't think we saw in the previous Dodger teams that got eliminated in the first round. And for me, I kept waiting for the old Dodger team to show up through this playoff, but they proved me wrong. And the reason why I believe in the baseball gods, and the reason why I was confident at the beginning of the World Series, oh my gosh, they're going to pull it off, was Fernando Valenzuela passed away. And I said to myself, there is no way that the baseball gods are going to be this cruel. And I don't know if you've had a chance to talk about it on your show, how important Fernando Valenzuela is, not only to the Dodgers, but to I wouldn't even just say LA, the city of Los Angeles. I would probably say all of California, and I mean, maybe a lot of the West Coast. But when he died, I was just like, there's no way that the baseball gods are going to do us this dirty and take Fernando and then have the Dodgers lose the World Series against a team, the New York Yankees, who Fernando helped beat his rookie year. It's just it was too cosmic, right? But I will tell you this: when they lost Game 4, being that this is the 20th anniversary of the comeback, and I had just watched it on Netflix, I was like, I can't believe they're going to do this. They're going to choke. They're going to choke, because I thought everything was lining up for the Yankees. There was no way they were going to keep Aaron Judge down a whole series. Juan Soto is a machine. I mean, that guy's just ridiculous, right? And Stanton was having a good postseason. You had Garrett Cole coming in there. I'm like, oh, everything is lining up for them to come back to LA. I just did not see that fifth inning coming. And to me, that fifth inning was some weird baseball god shit. And I don't know if it's what you said, it's karma from the Greenwich Mafia out on the right field line, who decided they were going to, assault Mookie Betts. I don't know if the baseball gods took wrath on that. I don't know what the Yankees did, man. I really don't, because my jaw was on the floor in the fifth inning to see those kind of plays where you scored, like you said, 5 unearned runs after 2 outs.
Yeah.
You score that to tie the game. So I do believe in the baseball gods. This is the other reason why I also believe in the baseball gods. And I want to get your opinion on this. I felt that Roberts punted Game 4, and that really rubbed me the wrong way. And that's why I thought the baseball gods are going to come after the Dodgers for punting game 4 because you just don't do that in a World Series. In a regular season, I totally get it. But in a World Series, if you have an opportunity to win a game, you have to try to win a game. And it for me, it was arrogant, but it worked for that dude. And it worked for that organization. I mean, did you have a problem with the punting in game 4?
Well, and by the way, number 2 in this organization, Rob Bradford, on the main page, posted an interview that he did with Luke Weaver talking about watching the comeback. And my initial response was the legendary meme of Ricky Bobby, don't you put that evil on me, because I just didn't want that to happen. But no, listen, here's where it's interesting. You alluded to it a minute ago. I mean, I'm a firm believer in this. Maybe this is just because I'm old school or whatever. I believe in order to win a playoff series, to be successful in the postseason, to win a championship, you need 3 starters. If you do not have 3 starters, doesn't matter how good your bullpen is, you're just not going to win, because that's putting a lot of strain on your bullpen in a short amount of time. And so for me, the Dodgers had that, right? They had Yamamoto, they had Flaherty, they had Walker Buehler. And clearly Walker Buehler loves the big moment.
Yeah.
Sign him give him a 2-year deal right now. Just give him a 2-year deal. Like, it's a prove it deal, but hey, 2 years. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the chip. We're going to give you 2 years. I think where I looked at it a little differently. Like, I think old me would have been like, what the hell are we doing here? What is going on? Why are you doing this? And I think where he was playing chess and not checkers is he didn't use any of his high leverage arms, which was important. And he didn't have to use any of his starters. And I think that outside of, like, when you kind of look at you're hedging your bets, you're up 3-0 at that time, right? If you lose 1, it's not the end of the world, because, it's one thing to go for the gut check and the throat and all that. It's so hard to sweep teams in at this level, man, because everyone's talented, right? When you're in the World Series.
And not only is it hard, but it still continues. There has been no team that has forced a game 6.
Yeah.
When they're down 3-0.
It's hard. It's so hard. And we talk a lot about it in baseball, that to a certain extent there is no parity. Once you get to this level, there's parity, right? Like, there absolutely isn't. In this particular case, there is, because it's the Yankees and the Dodgers, the 2 of the highest payrolls in all of baseball, going head to head. And so for me, I wasn't as upset with it, because I'm looking at it as like, okay, like, you wave on the white flag. It's okay to admit defeat. You regroup, you re-rally, and you say, okay, let's go get them tomorrow. But we're not taking this back to LA. Like, we're winning this here. We're clinching here. And I think that's the mindset they went in. Whereas if you go into it, like I said a second ago, with like after that before that 5th inning, it's over. Let's play this cautious. Let's take the day off, get everyone kind of back, and then we'll win game 6. It's when you start thinking like that, that's when it's like, nah, you're just not going to win, right? And so,
I think they had that mentality, and then the unthinkable happened in that 5th inning. That changed. I think that changed the outlook of that game.
And I also think too, like, all the guys that kind of did what they did in that 5th inning, those are all dudes that have openly talked about how much they want to win, how much they want to win now. And also, how special it would be to win with Ohtani having arguably the best single season of a baseball player in the history of the game. Like, that's going to be an argument for another day, but it's a special thing, right? And so that's kind of where I think this team had, for lack of a better term, a little more edge than I think some Dodgers teams of before, that, even last year, right? Like, last year they lose in the NLDS to the Padres, and that was a tough pill to swallow. And I think, and you and I talked about it after, right? We talked about it for a while, that something was going to have to change. And I think something did. And I honestly think one of those factors that went into it is they kind of heard the chatter of, hey, you guys aren't supposed to be here. Hey, you guys are overrated. Oh, you guys are burning money, blah, blah, blah. And this core group took that personal. And here we are, one Jordan meme later, a World Series championship for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I'm joined by my good friend, Juan Ramirez. He is one of the hosts of Bleed Los podcast and Baseball ShangriLA. We are in the Wasabi Cloud Storage Man Cave, talking about how Juan's hangover is. Juan, first of all, now that you've recovered, kind of, has it actually set in that there's going to be a parade in 24 hours.
Yes, because I'm waiting for tickets to be available for the event because my daughter's been. So my daughter wanted to go to the World Series, and we just don't have that kind of money. We paw out here, okay? And I said, we're going to be watching it on TV, and you will like it. Now, I took her to the NLDS, and I took her to the NLCS, and I got to do something that I never thought I was going to be able to do, Alonso. When I took her to the NLCS, I took her to game 2. It was a 1:00 game. And I've always heard these stories when I was a kid about how parents would take their kids out of school
Oh,
and
yeah,
take
yeah.
them to a playoff game.
Yeah.
And I always think, it's the romanticism of baseball, right? I was like, oh, that's so great. I was able to go ahead and do that. So
Nice.
I was like, you're not going to school. We're going to the game. And it was a shitty game, but whatever. We still had that experience.
Also, I remember why they lost because you were there. That's 100%.
Exactly. I mean, well, the funny thing is she really is the jinx because the both games that I've taken her to in this playoff run, the Dodgers have just gotten, motorboated, boat raced, excuse me.
You also I like that you're deflecting onto the child. It's not you, it's somebody else's
Hey,
problem.
I went to game 5 of the NLDS by myself and they won. So yeah, it's on her. Look, you want to know? I'm not the only one that's doing this. Her government teacher took roll that Monday that I took her to the game, right? She was the only one that was absent in that class. The teacher literally said this, oh, she's probably at the game. Now, the next day she goes back to school. The teacher says, do me a favor, don't ever go to any more Dodger games. So this was during the NLCS when they went to New York. The weekend after they come back, the teacher tells her, hey, I'm so thankful you didn't go to New York. Thank you very much. So she's become Eddie Mush for LA, basically. Yeah. But she was really excited about the World Series. And I told her, I said, look, it's not happening. We just don't have the money. And she said to me, okay, but can we go to the parade? And I said, I will take you to the parade. So yes, it has completely sunk in. And going back to your point, Alonso, where you said that they were aware of the chatter. Yeah, this team was very aware of what was being said about them. And I found that very surprising because, most athletes will say they don't listen to that kind of stuff. But when you have Mookie Betts, who was getting killed on social media for doing an interview with Fernando Tatis Jr. and him saying that, hey, I took 400 swings, after they beat the show pods, to have Max Muncy yell into the camera, 80% of you motherfuckers picked us to lose. Like, these guys were very cognizant of what was being said about them. I think that drove them. I think another thing that really drove them is the intestinal fortitude of Federico. Yeah. For that dude to be playing on an injury that people were saying would, if this was the regular season, he would have been out 6 to 8 weeks.
At least.
So for him to play, like you said, everybody's banged up at this point of year. But what does that say to you if you see this guy out there freaking hobbling and saying, no, I'm going to be, it's like the scene from Cool Hand Luke when Paul Newman's getting his ass kicked and he keeps getting back up. It's like, dude, bro, just stay down, man. Just stay down. I don't want to keep beating you up. But you got Federico who keeps getting up. I mean, if you were on that team, man, no te da vergüenza to be like, no, man, I got to go out there. I mean, if this guy's out there playing, I got to go out there.
No, I mean, listen, he set the tone, if we're being completely honest, that you gotta grind through it. And listen, here's the only thing I have in common with Freddie, because I am a 6-foot Mexican guy. I am not 6'4" with great veneers, the whole 9 yards. He and I have both experienced something that no parent should ever experience, and that's a sick kid. And I'll be honest, for me, just understanding the sick kid thing, like, obviously we're both still, his kid's on a great track to recovery. My kid's got still issues with his cancer. It messes with you, man, because nothing matters, right? Nothing else matters. And it messes with you in so many ways that you don't really understand until you're in that situation. And he was able, that for me, that's one of the most impressive parts, aside from the injury, is that he's able to he was able to kind of push through that, but also to play at the level that he played. I don't think the crazy part is, I don't think that Freddie Freeman's ever been in this zone. And the reason I say that, he was asked in the post game, I think it was by Boppy, asked him, "Hey, can you talk to us about what it's like to be in that zone?" And Freddie, for the most part, always has kind of an answer for something, right? He was kind of speechless. He was like, I don't really have a way of explaining it. Like it's one of those where you get here every day and you're just locked in and you're laser focused, and that's terrifying. That's the terrifying thing is I don't think we've seen that before. I don't know if we'll see it again. I hope we do. Um, but it's one of those where that's a special kind of thing where you just turn it on, you get hot at the right time, and you run with it. And I think that's what set the tone for this team is overall this, like you said, this dude should absolutely have been in a boot. I've seen football players that have the same injury that he has, and they're in a boot for 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes a little longer. And he went through, I mean, the rigorous treatment that he got every day. Holy shit, I will not do it. I'd be like, nah, I'm good. You don't need to rub out that swelling. I think we're okay. And for him to push through that, that's crazy. Walker Buehler to kind of push through all the adversity. I mean, he said it post game. I thought I was going to be fucking released by this team, and now he goes on to pitch the clinching out, excuse me, for the Dodgers, gets the save. So I mean, and here's the thing too, man. Baseball as a whole, like the romanticization of baseball, this is what baseball is all about, right? Like the comeback win, no matter how tough it is, especially with how tough it is, and and this is where I think, going back to something you said a minute ago, I think this is vastly different than '88, because with this team is obviously talent wise exponentially better than that team was. No disrespect to that team.
Yeah.
Even then, right? Like the way that, like, I mean, Freddie hit a walk-off grand slam. It's the first one in World Series history. That's something even Kirk Gibson didn't do, right? So I mean, that in itself is leaps and bounds way tougher than it is. And so there's parodies and there's parallels, but it's very different era. It's also against the Yankees. No disrespect to the Oakland A's at the time. For me, again, this just goes back to, you're kind of proving all the naysayers wrong. And I mean, here's the thing, man. Dave Roberts is a Hall of Famer. I don't care what anybody says. That dude's a Hall of Famer. Otani, Freeman, Mookie.
Before we get off of Dave Roberts, I want to get your opinion on Dave Roberts, because you just mentioned that he is a Hall of Famer. Do you really think that this is the best managing job he did in that World Series? I only say that because I thought Aaron Boone did a great, I mean, maybe he did it a little too late when he changed that Yankees lineup and he split up the lefties and the righties. And it seemed like the Dodgers really didn't have an answer for that. And that's where the Yankees lineup came up. But it seems like with Dave Roberts, there's always a script, and the problem was the previous two playoff seasons, all the beat writers who cover the Dodgers always said the same thing. Things speed up on the Dodgers. Well, when things go wrong and you can't follow your game plan, that's when you actually start managing. Yesterday was probably the best example of something went wrong and it didn't speed up on the Dodgers. So what do you think of Dave Roberts' managerial job during this series, or during this whole postseason, actually?
I think kind of like what Freddie said to Poppy about being in the zone, everything just kind of slows down for you. I think it slowed down for Dave too. And I think for Dave to have gone out and managed the pitching the way that he did with all of the injuries, for me, is why I think he did an outstanding job. I think if the pitching would have been completely different, I think there'd be a different story. I see the perception of why some people say that this was just an outright domination by the Dodgers, because Flaherty and Yamamoto pitched outstanding innings, games 1 and 2, and they just kind of froze those bats, right? They couldn't get Giancarlo going, they couldn't get Aaron Judge going, and really until game 2. But it's one of those where I think, all things considered, he managed it well, because even when those things happened, no one hit the panic button. No one freaked out. No one said, "Oh shit, this is what we need to do. This is what the book says." And they stuck to the plan. They trusted the process, and clearly it worked out, because now they are World Series champions. And so for me, that's why, I mean, listen, it's hard to argue that Dave Roberts is not a Hall of Famer. the amount of pennants, the amount of World Series appearances. He's got 2 rings already, and this is potentially the beginning of kind of this golden era of Dodgers baseball, where that's what obviously ownership wants. And for him to have managed the way that he did and managed all of it the way they did. And here's the thing, man, we haven't even gotten to the off the field stuff, right? The Ohtani scandal, the beginning of the season, that's a tough one to deal with. The adjustment that these guys have to make with a guy like Ohtani in your clubhouse. And even then, that guy's stepping up as a leader, telling these guys, hey, I'm in. I'm like, after the shoulder separation, he's like, nah, I'm in, guys. Don't even trip about it. In English, letting them know I'm gonna do it. So I mean, and then now you go into, you know, the world right before the World Series starts, Fernando Valenzuela passes away. And you know, that offers up a whole litany of other things. And the other thing too about World Series games, some of these intros take a long time. And so there's an opportunity for guys to get cold. There's an opportunity for guys, you know, for the rhythm to get thrown off, the routine to get thrown off. And the Dodgers and the Yankees both alike managed both of those well. What it just came down to is Dave Roberts won the chess match. That's just what it is. You know, he countered each of those moves and was able to manage them. Even with that lefty situation, like you talked about, they were still able to manage it, and they just manufactured runs. I mean, that's what it ended up being, is just the manufacturing of runs, whereas the Yankees just had missteps at the fundamental side. And that's kind of the story of this series, is the Yankees had a bunch of missteps, and their bats were arguably colder than the Dodgers, and that's why we're here. Real quick for you, is Dave Roberts a Hall of Famer? And for the record, I will not stand for Dave Roberts slander on this show.
No, I like you. I think it's very hard now to argue against him being a Hall of Famer, because look, for me, the definition of what a manager is, if someone didn't know, hey, what's a baseball manager? I would always show them a picture of Tommy Lasorda and say, that's what a baseball manager should be. So being that Tommy is the standard for me, Tommy won 2 World Series and he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Dave Roberts has now won his 2nd World Series, 4 pennants, and he has the highest winning percentage. And yeah, I get it that he is. I mean, look, I don't want to, it's not fair. This is not a fair comparison to put him there with Phil Jackson. But I do subscribe to the theory that you still have to have talent to manage talent. And what the Dodgers had, they had elite talent, they have elite superstars. And not anybody, and I think that's Dave Roberts' greatest strength, is how he handles that clubhouse. Because one of the things that we haven't even talked about, of all the things he had to deal with this season, one of the other things he had to deal with was moving Mookie to shortstop less than a week into spring training.
That was
and
tough.
not only doing that, but then when Mookie comes back, going, hey, the best thing for this team is for you to go back to right field. You know, because those are all moves that, you know, you could have lost the clubhouse. I mean, when they released Jason Hayward, I mean, that's Federico's best friend. You know, he could have lost the clubhouse there, because I mean, like, why are you guys doing a veteran like this? This ain't right. So I think a lot of what makes Dave Roberts a Hall of Famer is intangible. That being said, there's still going to be a lot of people in the fan base that are going to say he sucks next year when he starts making if he screws up a batting order, makes a bad, leaves a guy in too long. They're still going to say fire Dave Roberts. But this one's different, and for me, this one tips the scales to the fact that Dave Roberts is going to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, a lot of people are saying it. You're looking at perhaps that number 30 is going to be up in the rafters and is going to be retired. This has been, you know, for a huge period of time, the Dodgers had managers for decades. And then what happened after Tommy left was it was a revolving door of managers. And now Dave Roberts comes in. So now you're going to have, if you look at the history of the Dodgers, you're going to have Walter Alston, you're going to have Tommy Lasorda, and now I think you add Dave Roberts to that list. That those are the 3 definitive managers in the history of this organization. So yeah, I think Dave Roberts is a Hall of Famer, and you're not going to get an argument for me on that one.
I remember a year ago, after the NLDS loss, people were calling for Dave's head. And I asked people then, okay, we're going to call for Dave's head. I need 3 names of dudes that can replace Dave Roberts today to get this team to where we are here. No one gave me 3 names. Everyone gave me like there was 1 or 2, but no one gave us 3. And looking back on
even
it,
this year, dude, Skip Schumacher was.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of rumblings about Skip Schumacher, but you bring it up, Alonso. I got to tell you, I think this championship, as great. I mean, Federico was the MVP. Shohei wins his first World Series in his first year. To me, probably the most important, the person who benefits the most from this championship is Dave Roberts.
oh,
Because
absolutely.
if they flamed out in the first round, I don't know. Maybe they do fire him because look, we got to make a change for sake of making a change. But I mean, this organization really, I don't think listens to anybody outside of it. But I think, and this is, I mean, next year is the last year of his deal. So Dave Roberts has a lot of leverage right now when he's going to be renegotiating that deal.
No, and listen, it makes all the sense in the world for the Dodgers to keep him for as long as they can. I mean, I would not want him to manage in any other jersey aside from a Dodgers jersey personally. But I mean, given where it's at, because now we're entering in kind of historicals, right? Because I mean, it's hard to win the World Series. I don't care what you say you have on paper. It is incredibly difficult to win a World Series. To win it back to back is incredibly another notch of incredible difficulty. And then to do what the Yankees did with those dynasty years, that's even harder. And usually what it starts with is who's running that clubhouse and keeping everyone kind of in check, right? And Dave Roberts does a fantastic job of managing all of those personalities because you have superstars that are making a boatload of money. You have veterans that are very secure in who they are. The 30-something-year-old veteran that knows they could have a job in the show wherever, and they're there. And then the nucleus of the younger guys, right? Your Gavin Stones, your Anthony Bandas, your all those guys, and who are still kind of trying to find their way in this world to make it work. And clearly they can hang, right? But you still have to be able to have someone that can manage all that. Oh, and by the way, Shohei Ohtani. And so you have to have a personality that can manage that. So that's where I see the Phil Jackson comps, but where it's very different is in basketball. I don't think it's the same per se to manage those personalities as it is in baseball, because in some cases in baseball, there's 5 to 10 of those superstar personalities in a clubhouse sometimes, whereas in basketball, there's 3 to 4. And even then, they're not around each other as much as baseball players. That's where I think there's a big kind of disparity. But I digress because that's still it's a job I would never want. I would never want to be a manager because of the scrutiny that comes with it. And you just got to tip your cap to Doc, because that's a Hall of Fame manager no matter what you say. So the offseason has begun, and breaking a few minutes ago, the Atlanta Braves traded outfielder Jorge Soler to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim literally a few minutes ago. So I have to ask you the question, Juanito. There's chatter, the streets are talking that the Dodgers may make a move or at least engage in a conversation with Juan Soto. I mean, you at least have to kind of kick the wheels a little bit, right? Kick the tires, see what he wants, if it makes sense, so on and so forth. I'm of the party that I don't think that they need Juan Soto. I'm also the guy that said that the Dodgers probably don't need Ohtani, but I'm the idiot because they still signed him anyway. So my question to you is, looking ahead, this team could look different. There's a lot of free agents on the team. Daniel Hudson just retired last night, right?
Yes.
Good for him. Good for you, Huddy, to go out on top. There's questions about Walker Buehler, what that future looks like, right? Clayton Kershaw said he's coming back. So that's some good news there. Hopefully he's healthy. That's what we're all rooting for. Kike Hernandez. It's another, that's an interesting guy that, where you got to bring him back. Where are you going to put him? There's so many other kind of other pieces that are like that. My question to you is, we'll start with Juan Soto. Do you kick the tires on him, and do you get hot and heavy, or do you just kick the tires?
I don't buy the Juan Soto to the Dodgers. I really don't. But I will say this: I do feel bad for Yankee fans, because not only them losing the game last night, but then he kicked them in the balls by him. Literally, did you see the post game interview when they asked him, how much do you love New York and the city? And he's basically, well, it's not necessarily the city. Look, I think the Mets are going to go hard at him. And I think what the Mets did, I'm very curious to see what that Vientos kid looks like next year. But if you add somebody like Soto into that Mets lineup, what that's going to do, um, look, Soto just he's a Boris client, right? I'm correct on that?
Yeah, you
The
are
Dodgers,
correct.
the Dodgers
I believe
don't
Pete
have
Alonso is too, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, the Dodgers don't have the greatest track record with Boris. I'm sure Boris is going to use the Dodgers. But the other thing that worries me about Soto, and that is, as I think Soto, he was a different guy on the Yankees than he was on the show pods. And I think for me, he is clearly an East Coast guy. And I think he probably would do better by playing on the East Coast. I don't think he's necessarily a fan of the West Coast. And that's why I don't think that's serious. I think there'll be a lot of, mind-numbing off-season talk saying Soto to the Dodgers. I'm sure John Heyman will be the first one that's going to report that, Soto to the Dodgers is going to happen. I just don't see it happen. I think what the real question is going to be are the Dodgers going to give Teoscar Hernandez a long-term contract?
It makes all the sense in the world. They should have offered it like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah. So that to me is what is going to be interesting in terms of what they're going to do. I also think their farm system plays a huge deal in this. In terms of position players in their farm system, I don't think any of those guys are ready. There isn't anybody there. So they are going to have to rely on free agency for at least these next couple of years to fill some of those positions. Obviously, they are loaded with pitchers in the minor league system, but a lot of them are hurt now. So they are going to have to maybe go out there. Yes, they get Shohei back. They have Yamamoto. The problem is we don't know what's going on with Glasnow. Will Glasnow end up needing surgery? And if he does, how long is he going to be out for? Kershaw's going to come back, but you don't know, how healthy Kershaw's going to be. And I mean, look, from what we learned this year is you can never have enough pitching. So if anything, I think the Dodgers will probably go hard maybe on free agency on the pitching side and not on the position side. And one of the guys I would keep an eye on is Blake Snell, because I'm sure he's going to opt out of that deal. And I know it seemed, if you believe the reports, the Dodgers were in on Blake Snell. They just wanted to get him at their price. So I'm curious if the Dodgers will go ahead. Corbin Burns is going to be another free agent. So I see the Dodgers more maybe willing to go big. And I think also part of Friedman's, I think he would much rather spend money on a free agent and go big there than have to rely on the trade deadline. He has said this, and I will take him at his word. The reason why we sign these people in the offseason is so we don't have to make a trade during the season.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's where the big decisions for me are what other big pitchers are they going to bring in because of the injuries they have to their pitching staff, and what are they going to do with the Oscar? I think I would bring Kike back. I was very surprised at the price they brought Kike in this year. So I think they could probably get him on his price again, because I think Kike likes playing for the Dodgers. And that's going to be the real question with these guys is they know I have a really good chance of winning the World Series here. What's more important, winning the World Series or getting another payday?
No, and you make a good point. Like the Oscar Hernandez makes a ton of sense to come back, right? Now that he's won, because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to win. I mean, you can't fault the guy for chasing a bag, right? He may want to go elsewhere to get paid. I will never fault a man for wanting to take care of his people. And so if that happens, hey, you know what? Thank you for everything, Teoscar. Appreciate you, and enjoy your Brinks truck that whoever is going to be backing up to your house. But I mean, it makes a lot of sense for the Dodgers for continuity to offer him a 3-year deal. I mean, I put out there, offer him 3 years, 150. See what he says. I mean, the worst thing you could say is no, right? And I mean, that's a hefty amount of money for 3 years. It makes a lot of sense.
Wait, you go 3 years, 150 for Teoscar?
Bro, think about what he's going to get in the market.
Wait, 3 years, 150?
Yeah. Think about what he's
paying
going
him
to get.
$50 million?
What he's making 23.5 right now. He's gonna want at least 30. And he's gonna want that over a 7-8 year deal, 6 year
So
deal.
wait, you again, 3 years, 150. That means Teoscar Hernandez is getting $50 million a year.
Yeah, and they're gonna defer half of it. You know they are.
That seems a little too rich for my blood, for Teoscar.
Do you want
But
to win or no? Do you want to win? Yes or no?
I get it. I'm very curious to see how aggressive they are now that they've won the World Series, because we know winning a World Series buys you time.
Yes.
You know, but with Shohei being there, I wonder if Shohei applies pressure. I'm very curious to see how Shohei reacts to this. Because now he's won his World Series. And again, this is a dude that has nothing else to prove. The only thing I think Shohei has left to prove is if he comes out next year and he wins the Cy Young. If he wins the Cy Young, then he would have won like every award in Major League Baseball. And it's like, now what?
Every award except MVP in a playoff series, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So I mean, that's
true.
That's at the wayside, right? But I mean, but this is the reason I say you pay Teoscar that amount of money. I mean, if he had multiple year offers, I assume the offers that he had out there were between 3 and 4 years at 75 to 80. He has surpassed earning that, because he's now shown you he can hit in the playoffs. He can produce runs in the playoffs. Yeah, the bat went cold for a minute, but who else didn't in that lineup, right? Yeah. But and then defensively, he's shown you that he is up there with the best of the best in the league. And so that in itself is why I think he's going to end up between that 100 to 150 range. And that's where, long term, where it kind of ends up. And it wouldn't surprise me if he tries to get a 5 or 6 year deal elsewhere. But if the Dodgers came in short term in that range, it would make all the sense in the world, because you have the best opportunity to continue to win. You're getting paid what you want. And there it is. Because here's the thing. When you look at free agent pitchers, the market ain't great. Like, you have Justin Verlander, ain't happening. Max Scherzer, ain't happening. Garrett Cole has an opt-out. He ain't opting out. Blake Snell has a player option. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Patrick Corbin, Robbie Ray has an opt-out. Charlie Morton, Lucas Giolito has an opt-out. That one, we'll see. I mean, he's making 19 a year. Michael Wacha, maybe. That's a maybe. Like, that'd be a cheap option, but I think he stays in Kansas City. Old friend Frankie Montas with a mutual option with Milwaukee at 20 a year. I don't think they're going to pick up that option. Corbin Burns, Max Fried, Flaherty. To me, the guy that makes the most sense is you re-sign Flaherty. I just don't know what he's going to want is the thing. Like, I don't think he played himself into a massive, Garrett Cole deal or anything like that. But I mean, the number he's at this year was 14. I think that's kind of around where his number is, between 14 and 17. If you wanted to be like, hey man, thanks for your service, here's 20, with the signing bonus, like that's not a bad deal. I just don't know if he's going to want a crazy deal in comparison, to some of those other pitchers that are out there. That's kind of your upper echelon kind of mark. I mean, Shane Bieber is a free agent. Already just still kind of out on Biebs. Jose Quintana, but he's 35, almost 36. Probably not either. So I mean, it's slim pickings even at the starting pitching range. So that's why, to me, it makes all the sense in the world to bring Flaherty back, because you know what you're getting with that guy. And if you have a whole season with him to work on the things that he needs to work on, if he's anything like he was in game 1 and 2 of the World Series, absolute cinema. Absolute cinema.
Look, I for me, of those people that you named, I think Max Fried is another interesting one, just because he went to that famous Harvard Westlake, and he was at the game when Flaherty pitched. So I wonder if all of a sudden Max Fried gets a little sentimental and goes, I wonder what it would be like to come back home and pitch for the Dodgers.
As we wrap this up, how hard are you going to go at the parade tomorrow? Like, how, on a scale, I mean, obviously you have to be a good example for your daughter, but on a scale from 0 to 10, how hard is Juan Ramirez going to go at that parade tomorrow?
I'm going to be super chill. I'm going to soak it in only just because I realize, bro, I'm old. I'm an old man, and I don't want to embarrass her and act like
She is a teenager after all.
yeah, she's already like one of the things is, I'm very proud of my t-shirt game, so I get a lot of compliments on my t-shirts when I go to the stadium, and she just wants to bury her head into the sand whenever someone goes, "Hey, nice shirt," and stuff like that. So I know I also feel yeah, it's different, man. I'm older now, so I think it's if I was a kid, I'd probably go a lot harder at this parade. There is something for me being that 2020, and I get it, it was different. We didn't have a parade in 2020. This will be the first parade that I attend. But I feel there's more of a just sit back and enjoy, and there's no need to act like an idiot.
The one thing I'm really curious about what it's going to be like vibes wise is we also can't forget that November 1st is Fernando Valenzuela's birthday.
That's right.
And for me, a lot of people were saying, hey, wait until game 6. Let's clinch in game 6 at home. For me, it's like, nah, give him a parade on his birthday because that's what the guy would have wanted. And the reason I say that is because no one would have cared about him and it's his birthday. Everyone would have cared about the parade. And so it's just kind of fitting for me that it's happening the way that it is. I'm just bummed I won't be there because I'm going to be on a plane heading the other way up to the PNW, and I'm a little ass hurt that I'm not able to offset how we would be yin and yang. You would be very chill. I would be drinking directly out of every Don Julio 70 bottle that is handed to me because you as Kershaw said last night, you kind of have to revel in it one time at least.
Look, it may once I get there, depending on what the vibe is like, I may go crazy. I may. I'll let you know. I will do my best to document and send you the proof.
Like I said when we started this, when I was sitting around watching the game after the game, I was like, who do I want to talk to about this? And there was just no one else better that I wanted to talk to than my good friend Juan Ramirez. Catch him on the Bleed Los podcast or Baseball ShangriLA. Those are two very different podcasts. Subscribe to both of them. You can always catch Juanito there. They'll have their reaction. Thank you for joining us on West Coast Bias, presented by Baseball Isn't Boring. Shout out to our partners at Wasabi Cloud Storage for always getting us sorted. Check them out, wasabi.com. And big shout out to Juanito. Juan, if they are not following you on the socials, what are your social handles?
You can follow me at Blue Revolt Film on Twitter. On the Instagram, I go as the Rasquatches sports journalist. I know I should have everything be the same, but that's who I am. I'm a very disorganized person, but
that is true.
I love talking sports. So, and by the way, congratulations to you, my friend, on the show. And I just want to say, when I first started working with Alonso, it was in 2020 when the Dodgers won the World Series.
That's right. And that was, for me, I remember that series because I was on my way back from Denver because we finally got to go outside and they clinched. I was listening to Sirius XM. I was listening to Steiner and Rick make the call. And I'm in the canyon and I could hear it and I'm hauling ass to come home so we can do a reaction bit. And now look at us now. Look at us now.
Look at us. Look at us.
Look at us.
Yes.
Thank you for the kind words, my friend. And I am just a jabroni on the internet that doesn't know what he's talking about. So we will catch you on the next West Coast Bias presented by Baseball Isn't Boring.